You know that moment where you open your bank app at night, half excited, half terrified, and you see it, $100,000. And instead of fireworks, your brain goes, cool, so what if I nest this up? Be honest, did you think you'd feel safer than this? Or did it somehow feel like the pressure just doubled? You're not weird for feeling that. Hitting your first $100,000 is a real win, and it also flips the game on you in a way nobody warns you about. Because the stuff that got you here, light-knuckle saving, saying no to everything, obsessing over every little expense, won't be the stuff that gets you to the next level. The playbook changes once your money's heavy enough to matter. Here's where we're going. First, we're at a lockdown, but nothing can derail me basics. Then we'll aim your dollars into the few places that actually move the needle. And finally, we'll set up the simple system that turns $100,000 into $300,000, then $500,000, then, eventually, 7 figures, without you feeling like you're sprinting forever. And to make this feel real right away, run this in your head. If you've got $100,000 invested, and it averages 7% a year over time, that's about $7,000 in growth in a year. That's your money quietly doing a side job. Now compare that to when you had $10,000 invested. Same 7%, that's $700. You still had to do basically all the work. That's why people say the first 100K is the hardest. Up to now, your progress mostly came from you pushing. After this, it starts coming from the money pushing back. But there's a catch. Right when compounding starts getting interesting, a lot of people either freeze or they get bored and start swinging at random pitches. One common mistake is keeping everything in cash because it feels safe, even though inflation's quietly taking bites out of it every single year. Another mistake is doing the opposite and chasing some miracle investment because you feel like you're behind. So let's set the tone. This isn't about being perfect. It's about building a setup that makes the smart move the default move, even on the months where life gets loud. All right, first thing. You need a safety buffer that protects your investing brain from your panic brain, not because you're fragile, but because you're human. If an unexpected expense hits and you've got to sell investments at the worst time, the market didn't beat you, you got forced into a bad moment. That's what we're preventing. A solid target for most people with a steady paycheck is 3 to 6 months of core expenses in cash, parked somewhere boring and accessible, not your whole net worth. Just your nothing breaks me money. This week, write down your monthly bare-bones number: housing, food, utilities, insurance, minimum debt payments, and multiply it by 3, then by 6, so you got a clear cash target instead of a vague feeling. Now, if you've still got high-interest debt like credit cards in the 18% to 29% range, treat that like an emergency, because the math is brutal. Getting a guaranteed 20% return by paying that off beats almost anything you can responsibly do in the market. The myth is that investing is always the move. The reality is that 22% interest is a fire, and you don't build wealth while your house is on fire. If your only debt is something like a reasonable fixed-rate student loan or a mortgage, that's a different conversation. But the high-interest stuff? That's the leak you patch first. Here's the quick way to seal the difference. $10,000 on a card at 24% is about $2,400 a year in interest. That's $200 a month getting donated to your past self's bad decisions. Once your buffer exists and a high-interest debt is handled, you've earned a right to focus on the fun part, making your $100,000 actually behave like $100K, and yeah, you might still feel like you're one mistake away from losing it. That feeling fades when your plan gets simple and repeatable. Now we're moving into the part almost nobody explains well, where each new dollar should go after $100,000. So you're not just saving, you're building. Think about your money like a boulder you pushed up a hill for years. Getting it to the top took willpower. Now your job is to stop kicking it sideways. A better approach than, I'll just figure it out each month, is a clean order of operations. Not fancy, just deliberate. If your job offers a retirement plan match, that match is basically an instant raise. If you're skipping it, you're turning down free money because you're busy being responsible in the wrong direction. So the first lane is capture the match if you've got it. The next lane is get consistent investing into broad, diversified funds so you're not betting your future on one company, one sector, or one viral story. And the next lane is anything extra you can invest goes into the accounts you can actually stick with automatically, month after month. Here's a decision tree that keeps you from overthinking it. If you'd lose sleep watching your investments drop 10% in a rough year, keep a slightly bigger cash buffer and invest the rest steadily anyway. If you've got 10 plus years before you need the money, you can generally afford more stock exposure than you think because time is what smooths the bumps. If you're within 5 years of a big goal, like a house down payment, money for that goal shouldn't be riding the roller coaster. That's not cowardice, that's matching the tool to the job. And yeah, markets won't hand you a smooth 7% every year, but over long stretches, the odds have favored patient, diversified investors. Let's make the math feel tangible again. Say you keep $100,000 invested and you add $1,000 a month. That's $12,000 a year in contributions. The market averages around 7% over time. Your first year's growth might be something like $7,000 on the original money, plus a bit on what you added along the way. Call it roughly $20,000-ish in progress between growth and contributions, depending on timing. That's the shift. It stops being my savings are crawling. It becomes my system is stacking. But the middle zone from $100,000 to $300,000 can feel slow because you can still see every wobble, and the account isn't big enough to feel unstoppable yet. That's where people sabotage themselves. They check balances too often, they get spooked by headlines, they pause contributions for just a couple months, and suddenly the compounding engine keeps getting turned off and on like a flickering light switch. Another common mistake is upgrading life every time income rises, so your savings rate never actually grows. You'll hear someone say, "I'm making way more than I used to," and then you look closer and the car payment, the rent, the subscriptions, and the "we deserve it" spending ate the whole raise. So here's a rule that's boring and powerful. Every time your income goes up, your investing goes up automatically. Not someday, automatically. If you get a 6% raise and your take-home pay rises by, say, $300 a month, you don't need to save all $300. But if you invest even $150 of it, you just bought yourself momentum without feeling deprived. That's how you keep your lifestyle from sprinting ahead of your future. If you want one clean benchmark, aim to invest 15% of your gross income as a baseline, if you're starting at $100,000. If you can push toward 20% over time, your timeline changes fast. And I mean fast in a way you can actually feel. At $100,000 invested, a 7% average year is about $7,000. At $300,000, that same 7% is about $21,000. At $500,000, it's about $35,000. Same behavior, totally different results. That's why this stage is about system, not stress. If you're getting value out of this and you want more money videos that stay practical instead of hype, subscribe. Now let's talk about the thing that makes $100,000 either explode into real wealth or sit there like a trophy you're scared to touch. It's your monthly surplus. Not your salary, not your hustle, your surplus. If you don't know your surplus, you'll keep guessing, and guessing is how money leaks happen. So you need two numbers that you can say without thinking. Your keep life running number and your I can invest this without breaking anything number. Once you've got those, your plan gets simple. Protect the base, invest the surplus, raise the surplus over time. The easiest way to raise the surplus isn't skipping another coffee. It's making your income grow faster than your spending. That's where career leverage comes in. If you can add $5,000 a year to your income through a job switch, a promotion, or a skill upgrade, and you invest half of that, that's an extra $2,500 a year going into your future. Over 10 years, that's $25,000 contributed, plus growth on top of it. And if you can do that a few times, you're not saving harder, you're playing a bigger game. Let me give you a clean case study because this is where the path stops feeling abstract. Imagine Chris, 31 years old, just hit $100,000 net worth between retirement accounts and a brokerage. He's pumped. Then he buys a nicer car because he earned it, and the payment is $550 a month. That's $6,600 a year. Over 10 years, that's $66,000 that could have been invested. And that's before growth. At a 7% average return over time, investing $550 a month for 10 years is roughly in the neighborhood of $95,000 to $100,000. So the reward card didn't just cost $66,000, it cost the better part of a whole extra $100,000 milestone. And the wild part is, he still could have upgraded his life. He just upgraded it in the most expensive way possible, a fixed monthly payment that never stops. The better approach is upgrading in ways that don't permanently raise your monthly baseline. Take the trip, buy the better mattress, fix the thing that annoys you every day. Just be careful with the stuff that locks you into payments, because the real flex after $100,000 is keeping your options open. Here's another way to frame it. Your first $100,000 proved you can build. Your next $200,000 proves you can steer. Steering means you stop treating every dollar the same. You start asking, is this dollar buying freedom later, or is it buying a bill I'll hate in 6 months? Now, there's one more trap in this stage that hits even disciplined people: all-in thinking. They go all in on investing and ignore cash completely. Then one emergency happens and they're forced to sell at a bad time, or they go all in on cash because they're nervous, and they miss years of growth while they wait for a perfect moment that never arrives. You don't need extreme. You need balance that you can actually live with. So here's your simple scorecard. If your cash buffer is under 3 months, build it. If you've got high interest debt, kill it. If you're missing a match, capture it. If your investing isn't automated, automate it. If your savings rate is flat, make your raises do the work. That's it. And since people always ask, how fast can I get from $100,000 to $1 million? Let's put a couple timelines on the table. If you start at $100,000 and you invest $1,000 a month for 20 years, and you average around 7% over time, you're in striking distance of 7 figures. If you can invest $2,000 a month, that timeline can shrink a lot, sometimes into the mid-teens, depending on returns. And if your income rises and your contributions rise with it, you're not just relying on the market, you're stacking your own momentum on top of it. Sometime in the next 7 days, set your investing to auto-transfer on payday, even if it's a small amount at first, because consistency beats motivation every time. Now we're in the part where the rules feel the most different, and it's why people say wealth is built by behavior, not brilliance. Once your portfolio gets bigger, small percentage moves become real money. A 10% drop on $100,000 is $10,000. Annoying, but recoverable. A 10% drop on $500,000 is $50,000. That'll mess with your head if you weren't ready for it. So you need a plan for volatility before it happens. Not a plan based on vibes, a plan based on your time horizon. If you're investing for retirement decades away, the price drops are part of the deal you signed for long-term growth. If you're investing for a near-term goal, that money shouldn't be exposed to big swings in the first place. The mistake is mixing timelines. People invest their emergency fund because they want it to work harder, and then the market dips right when they need the cash. Or they keep retirement money in cash because they want it safe, and then they lose years to inflation. Separate the buckets, match the bucket to the goal. And here's the part that feels almost too simple. Once the system's set, your big wins come from avoiding big errors. The top 3 wealth killers in this zone are panic selling, lifestyle creep, and on and off investing. So make those 3 things harder to do. Panic selling gets harder when you've got a real cash buffer. Lifestyle creep gets harder when your raises auto-increase your investing. On and off investing gets harder when it happens automatically and you don't have to redecide it every month. Let's run a quick before and after timeline so you can feel where this goes. Before, you hit $100,000, you keep $80,000 in cash because it feels safe, and you invest $20,000 sporadically. After, you keep a defined cash buffer, say $15,000 to $30,000 depending on expenses, and you invest the rest with a steady monthly contribution. In the before, you'll feel busy but stuck. In the after, you'll feel calm and slightly bored, and your net worth will climb anyway. Bored is underrated. Bored is what consistent investing feels like when it's working. And if you want a single mental shift that sums up this whole stage, it's this. You stop measuring success by how much you can save this month, and you start measuring success by how strong your system is, because a strong system survives your messy months. Now, let's apply the scorecard with 2 real-world examples. Example 1, you've got $100,000 saved, your expenses are $4,000 a month, and you're investing $500 a month. Your cash buffer target is $12,000 to $24,000. If you already have that, great. If you've got way more sitting in cash, you've probably got room to put some of that money to work, depending on your goals and risk tolerance. Then, the lever is your contributions. If you can move from $500 to $800 a month by trimming one recurring expense and capturing part of a raise, that's an extra $3,600 a year invested. Over a decade, with growth, that can be the difference between nice progress and oh wow, this is accelerating. Example 2, you've got $100,000 saved, but you also have $8,000 on a credit card at 25%. That interest is about $2,000 a year. Your best move is getting rid of that debt fast while still capturing any employer match, because you're basically paying a guaranteed penalty every day it sits there. Then, once it's gone, you redirect that payment straight into investing so you keep the habit, just aimed at your future instead of your past. Notice how neither example needed a secret stock.